Is this who I was to protect? Why? Because they are weak?
Put her down.
When you crush an ant beneath your foot, do you feel remorse? No. Is this because you are evil, or because you recognize yourself as a higher form of life? This is what the wizard could not understand. If I have the powers of the gods, then am I not a god myself? Should I not be treated as such?
Put her down.
You want to be a protector? Then protect this soul. Revert to your mortal form, and I will prove a benevolent deity.
And then you'll just kill me.
I will.
Welcome back to Nerd Gap. My name is Anil, and I'm the host and creator of the Nerd Gap community. And if you've been around from the start, you're probably wondering, where have I been and why have I taken so long to do a review? It seems like it's been forever since I did the last one. Well, the truth is, a lot has taken place and a lot has happened in my life between the time I did the last episode and now. And so it's just been a real big challenge to make some time and to come back to the swing of making these episodes and podcasts. But I do appreciate you joining me today. I am back for the discussion, or to share my thoughts on Black Adam, which just released, and I had a chance to see it, so I'd love to share my initial thoughts and impressions of that movie and hear what you guys have to say. But before I go ahead and start discussing the movie, as always, I'd like to thank you for joining me on this episode. If you're not already following me on Instagram or Twitter, that's where I do most of my posts. That's where I'm most engaged. So if you'd like to follow me there, on Instagram, it is @nerdgab. And on Twitter, it's @nerd_gab. You can definitely follow me there. You can shoot me a message. We can talk about all things nerdy. And now that I've got that out of the way, let's talk about Black Adam. So I first heard about this Black Adam movie happening, it feels like maybe almost 10 years ago. It could be less, but it definitely feels like it was a very long time ago when I first heard that The Rock was approached by WB to play a character in their DC franchise. And there was speculation at the time that he might play either Lobo or he might play Black Adam. Personally, my feelings were that he would have been a great pick for Lobo at the time, although I didn't know exactly how they would have fit that in, because at that time they didn't really have a Superman movie in the works other than Superman Returns, and I think they are just getting onto making Man of Steel. So Lobo for me was where I thought he'd be pretty cool, although now after seeing Jason Momoa, I think Jason Momoa would have been a better Lobo, although I do love Jason Momoa as Aquaman, so I'm conflicted there. But Black Adam was the second character that we heard The Rock might be playing. And again, this was almost, I feel like 10 years ago. It could have been a little less, but it might be right on the ball about 10 years ago. It could even be more. But I do remember hearing that Black Adam was in the works. And at first I thought that's really interesting, because if The Rock is going to be playing Black Adam, we already know The Rock is this big muscular dude. Black Adam is a big, powerful sort of villain, anti-hero type character, and I thought it would be a good mix. But at the time, The Rock wasn't really as large as he is now. I think now he's way more of a bigger star. And so I think at that time, I thought, okay, if it's not going to be Lobo, then it's probably perfect that he'll be Black Adam. That'll skyrocket him into like superstar status, which, you know, he kind of already was getting to that point, but I think at that time he wasn't where he's like now. Anyway, so it comes down to The Rock promoting the character, and then a few years ago, there was a discussion of the role being put on hold, and it wasn't until the Shazam movie came out, which I believe was about 2-3 years ago now, where The Rock actually posted very publicly that the Black Adam movie was back in production, or that it was moving forward. And he was very happy to announce that on his social media. And so everyone kind of remembered that he was going to portray Black Adam, and that there was a potential that it might cross over into the Shazam movie. So with that little nugget, there was this idea that they're going to be building up to a Shazam versus Black Adam. But the thing with The Rock is he's such a large star now, and this kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier, in the fact that he wouldn't just show up as a villain for one movie in a Shazam movie. So he wouldn't be the second build name on a one-shot movie, you know what I mean? So they would probably have to build up The Rock as Black Adam over the course of several movies because The Rock is such a huge star now. And so they wouldn't do that in 2 or 3 Shazam movies. They'd probably have to do that over the course of maybe 3 to 6 movies, or even a solo movie, which is the route they ended up going. So when I found out that The Rock was going to be playing Black Adam in a solo movie, I thought, okay, well, this is a great approach that they're going to make, because they're going to be focusing on Black Adam's origin story as the villain that I know him to be. And they're going to build him up that way so that when he finally does confront Shazam, we have a bit of resonance between both characters. We have Shazam's origin, we have Black Adam's origin, because they're basically two faces of the same coin. But then we found out that the creators of the Shazam movie had no intention or no plan to actually incorporate Black Adam into their franchise. So they announced maybe a couple of weeks ago, maybe even a couple of months ago, they mentioned that there was no plan to incorporate Black Adam in their Shazam franchise. And to someone like me, that just seems ludicrous. Like, why would you ever create a Shazam franchise without the idea of having Shazam confront or go against Black Adam? Like, why would you ever create a movie like that? It's like saying you're going to make a Superman franchise without Lex Luthor, or a Batman franchise without ever having the Joker. And I know a lot of people have some comments about that, but I was thinking that that's just crazy. So the whole intention behind doing a Black Adam movie, I think most of us being the guys at the comic book stores, people I talk to, fans online, I think a lot of people thought that the Black Adam movie was definitely going to focus as an origin story to Black Adam and how he became the villain that we knew him to be, and that he's going to be portraying a villain in the DCEU. But then, of course, we know what happened with the DCEU over the years. It's kind of diminished and became something a lot less grand than most of us were hoping. And so I think that has played a factor in what we ended up getting with this Black Adam movie. Now, personally speaking, I would have thought that by making a completely solo movie featuring The Rock as Black Adam, that DC may have had a stroke of genius, and WB would have came up with this sort of amazing plan to center their universe, their franchise, around Black Adam kind of being the central villain to their future of DC movies, like making him sort of like the Thanos of the DCEU, because they kind of already squashed their chances of doing Darkseid. We still don't know what's happening with that at this moment. There's a lot of buzz and rumors surrounding Zack Snyder possibly coming back and the Snyderverse being restored. All of that right now at this moment, which is October 2022, is very much rumor, and it is not confirmed. There's no connection yet to Zack Snyder. He's currently working on his contract with Netflix and doing Rebel Moon. So everyone has this sort of wild conspiracy that this might lead back to a revitalized version of the Snyderverse, but at this moment we don't have any confirmation of that. So my thinking was that if they were to do something new going forward, it would make a good idea to have Black Adam sort of be the central villain of the DCEU and sort of center your next wave of movies around Black Adam and kind of follow his path as he goes from hero to villain, if his solo movie is going to focus on his origin story, because he did start off as a hero and champion of Kahndaq in his story. So I thought that that was going to be the route that they were going to take. I thought that would have been really cool to have Black Adam be a centralized villain, and then you can sort of build hero solo movies around that. But ultimately that's not what they did here. And so we ended up getting this Black Adam solo movie that does kind of introduce us to his origin story, but they take some liberties and they make some changes, of course. some of which I thought were good and some of which I thought were bad. So before you go any further, I just need to point out or say there are going to be spoilers for the movie. If you have not seen Black Adam yet, there will be spoilers beyond this point. So if you do not want to know what's going to happen or how the movie goes or any cameos or anything like that, now would be the time to pause and come back after you've had a chance to see the movie and then hear what I have to say. So hopefully anyone that's still listening has either seen the movie or they don't really care to hear spoilers or they don't mind. But going from this point forward, there will be spoilers for Black Adam. So please, 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 if you have not seen the movie and you do not want spoilers, please hop off now. But going right into it right now, I'm just going to say Black Adam brings Zack Snyder into the universe. He actually brings Zack Snyder into the universe of DC, and Zack Snyder is Superman. Okay, now that the actual people who do not want spoilers are gone, that does not happen at all. That was just a joke. I just wanted to make sure that if you are listening past this point, you know for sure there's going to be spoilers, so you've been warned. So, the Black Adam movie features a bunch of new characters that we haven't seen before on screen in a DC movie. Some are characters that have never appeared on screen. They may have appeared in the animated series, or you may know them from the comics. So the characters in this movie are Kent Nelson, who is Dr. Fate, Carter Hall, who is Hawkman, Adriana Tomaz, who isn't Isis in this movie, but rather some type of Lara Croft kind of character. She's like a dungeon / Indiana Jones / professor type character. So we don't know if they're going to develop her into the superhero Isis or if she's just going to remain Adriana Tomaz going forward. We have Cyclone, we have Atom Smasher, of course we have Black Adam. The surprise villain for me was Sabbac. And then we have a cameo by Amanda Waller and Harcourt from the James Gunn Peacemaker series, and also from the James Gunn Suicide Squad, who is actually also his wife now, I think. So those are sort of the main cast of characters. And of course, I'll mention the cameo later on. By now, I think everyone else has sort of either heard about it from being spoiled through posts on social media, or they must have heard the buzz because it was pretty big. And maybe me just saying that alone might be enough to tip you off, but those are the main characters of the movie. So again, that was Kent Nelson as Dr. Fate. So there are different Dr. Fates. Then you have Hawkman, aka Carter Hall. And then you have Adriana Tomaz. And then you have Cyclone, Atom Smasher, Black Adam, Sabbac, Amanda Waller, and Harcourt. So let me jump into now a recap of Black Adam, the movie that's supposed to shake the very core of the DC franchise. It's supposed to shift the balance of power, according to Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Here is the recap of Black Adam. So the movie starts off with Dr. Fate having this crazy vision. So the audience is introduced to Dr. Fate right in the beginning, and he has this crazy vision about some massive evil being drawn to Earth. And he instantly thinks, okay, I need to go talk to my buddy Hawkman, because they used to work together in the JSA. You hear about this throughout the movie. So he goes to see Hawkman, and the reason he goes to see Hawkman is because Hawkman, aka Carter Hall, is a character who has existed in reincarnated forms through thousands of years on Earth. And so Carter Hall would have some sort of recollection or may have some sort of information from a past life that can help Dr. Fate tie his vision together and kind of predict where this massive evil is going to come from. So he goes to see Hawkman and tells him about this vision. And then Hawkman tells him, yeah, you know, I recall this thing from my past life where the people, they summoned a champion, or maybe it was a demon. I don't know. I don't remember. So anyways, in Kahndaq, this is where the story mostly takes place. The country of Kahndaq is being ruled over by this dictator who's basically assumed power through massive force and by oppressing the people with this army or this regime called Intergang. And so Adriana Tomaz, the character, is basically like this rebel. She works with the alliances, and they have like a rebel alliance against this intergang regime where they help the civilians however they can. And it's sort of like a guerrilla style movement. She's wanted by the government, a wanted figure. And so she is the person sort of leading this rebellion. But she's also a scholar. She has lots of information and historical interests where she learned a lot about ancient legends and things about Kahndaq. And so she's also been pursuing this legend. And she's been piecing together parts of this legend that foretells of a champion that once saved Kahndaq. And that's how she basically learned about Black Adam. And she's the one that learns how Black Adam led the revolution and saved Kahndaq in the past, like thousands of years before. And so she discovers these ancient texts and things like that throughout her time and journey with this Rebel Alliance to uncover the truth and uncover the ways of bringing Black Adam to Kahndaq, summoning him. Just sort of like how Dr. Fate's vision of something being summoned to Earth. And so she's the one that ends up leading the Rebel Alliance to the tomb of Black Adam. And therefore, she's the one that learns how to free him. And in the moment of being freed, they're actually attacked by the dictator's regime, Intergang. They show up and they start killing everybody and everything like that. And it's just a massacre. And in a moment of desperation, she summons Black Adam by reading this ancient text or this runic writing on the walls. And so you've discovered that that place that they were in is actually Black Adam's tomb from thousands of years ago. And so she reads this ancient runic writing on the wall, and boom, Black Adam is summoned. But he's not summoned alone. He's actually summoned with Sabak. And you find out that they actually were trapped together thousands of years ago by the wizards because they were going to destroy the world in an epic battle, and the only way to save the world was to trap them together in this tomb. So the wizards had trapped him there, and Adriana just released him. So as they're both released, Sabak and Black Adam, they have a little scuffle. Intergang is firing shots at everybody. Sabak sees an opportunity to escape. He gets away. And then Intergang takes aim at Black Adam instead of Sabak. And so he destroys, basically kills every living thing in the room except for Adriana Tomaz. And in that moment, when he's finally free, he also leaves and he gets away. As he makes his escape, he's then stopped immediately by Hawkman and Dr. Fate, who were on their way to where they think this ancient evil was supposed to arise. And as they thought they were on the way there, they actually encounter it, which is Black Adam right in front of them. And then a huge battle ensues, and there's like shit flying all over the place, and Black Adam's just whooping their ass, and Dr. Fate's doing some cool shit, and Hawkman's doing some cool shit, and it's just a wicked, very epic style battle, and The Rock is looking awesome. Dr. Fate looks cool, Hawkman looks cool, and the fight goes on for a bit, and then eventually he does overpower them, and he escapes. So while he escapes, they are basically left to lick their wounds, basically, and then they need to kind of figure out how are they going to stop this evil, how are they going to trap him, how are they going to defeat him. Then meanwhile, we cut to Sabak, who was just summoned to Earth just like Black Adam was, although he's now discovering he doesn't have his full power because while he was trapped in the tomb, he was only trapped as a servant, and so therefore to unlock his full power, he is tied to the bloodline of the family or the people that summoned him in the first place when Black Adam fought him first thousands of years ago. And of course, wouldn't you know it, the people that summoned him thousands of years ago, their descendants are still alive today, and in fact are the current rulers / dictators of Kahndaq. So Sabak ends up going to see that dictator, to see that ruler, to free himself from the bond of being a servant to their cause, basically to be free from their control. Then on the other hand, you have Hawkman and Dr. Fate now searching for Adriana because they realize she was somehow connected to how Black Adam got free. And so when they find her, she shows them the impact that Intergang has had on Kahndaq and why it drove her to do what she did. And she shows them what she's learned about Black Adam. And they discover that he is actually connected to the ancient magic of the gods from the past. And so that kind of gives Dr. Fate some ideas of how to think about how to stop Black Adam from going apeshit and just destroying anyone that stands in his way. While all that is happening, Black Adam is over here flying over Earth, thousands of years after he's been trapped, and kind of just learning new things and seeing how much the world has changed. And in doing so, he sees a bunch of Intergang soldiers basically chasing and bullying this small squad of rebels. And so he flies down to stop them. And in that time, he kind of has this flashback where he thinks about when he was first a slave in Kahndaq who led the revolution, and it made him think about his son. And so he stops these soldiers. He basically brutally destroys everyone. And one of the rebels that he saves happens to be the son of Adriana, the scholar / Lara Croft type lady that Dr. Fate and Hawkman are talking to. And so the son basically shows Black Adam, this is the world that we live in today. This is Kahndaq since these oppressors have showed up. And, we've been fighting for just basic civil liberties, and they have none of that. And without a savior, they're basically going to lose their livelihood. And so this resonates with Black Adam, and these two characters, they form this bond. The kid kind of reminds Black Adam of his son. And so that's how they kind of learn about what's going on. And the kid kind of informs Black Adam about all the atrocities in the world. And Black Adam basically represents the savior who can take them out of that and spare the world from these atrocities. So after learning all of this, basically Black Adam decides he wants to help the kid and he wants to save Kahndaq from these oppressors, because this is not what he became the champion for. He doesn't want to see Kahndaq being slave to anybody. So he decides to help, but he only decides to do so after he's found and defeated Sabbac, who is a much greater evil that has been unleashed upon the earth. And so he needs to stop Sabbac before he can help them with Intergang. And that's when the kid basically says, hey, you know what? My mom's this scholar. She knows a ton of shit. She might actually know something that can help you, or maybe we can learn something about this Sabbac guy that may give you a fighting advantage or tell us how to stop him. So they end up going off and looking for the mom, who is currently with Dr. Fate and Hawkman, filling them in on what the hell is going on. And so eventually these guys all meet up. And where you think a fight's about to ensue, they actually end up meeting common ground. But then out of nowhere, friggin' Sabbac double crosses the dictator dude, kills that dude, breaks free of his bond, and is then able to harness his full demonic / satanic powers. And he basically raises an entire army of demons to invade the earth, but really focusing in on Kahndaq because that's where they are at this moment. And that was the moment that Black Adam, Dr. Fate, Hawkman, they're all like, okay, we got to put our differences aside for the time being and we got to stop this dude. So they go off to fight Sabbac, and it's 3 against 1 basically. Hawkman, Dr. Fate, Black Adam, they're going at Sabbac. And in this fight, that's when Dr. Fate has this memory or this vision that ties back to the vision he had in the first part of the movie about this evil that gets released on the earth. And it all clicks because then he remembers the stuff that Carter told him, the stuff that Adriana told him. And so he realizes, okay, there's a window of opportunity here to stop this immense evil power. And so it involves a sacrifice in order to trap this person or trap this evil. He sacrifices himself to give Black Adam and Hawkman a fighting chance to stop Sabbac. And in that small window, Black Adam just basically fucking kills Sabbac in the most brutal way possible. And also Dr. Fate ends up dying as well. But now with Sabak dead, his entire demon army is destroyed, and the people of Kahndaq are happy and they're cheering and they look up at their savior and it's friggin' Black Adam, and he just saved Kahndaq just like he sort of did 1,000 years ago, except he never got the praise for it like he did then because he was trapped by the wizards. And so now he's found this like God complex where he's like, oh, I've found my people, I've saved my people, I've fulfilled my mission, but there's more to do because there's more oppression here. There's more that I can do and have a better impact. So they're cheering and they're all happy and shit. And friggin' Hawkman picks up the helmet of Naboo, which is the power for Dr. Fate. And he basically licks his wounds and, he looks up at Black Adam and they kind of have an indifference there, but they understand each other. They're going to stay out of each other's way. And then he leaves with the helmet. He's then later contacted by Amanda Waller, who's like, yo, I need that helmet. You better give me that helmet. Of course, he doesn't give a shit. He's like, no, fuck you. I'm not giving you this helmet. This helmet belongs to my friend. And it is a power that no one can control and no one should have power of unless they're, pure of heart, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And she basically tells him, listen, if you don't give me the helmet, I have thousands of people that are willing to die to see me achieve my goals. Basically hinting at her Suicide Squad. She'll send after him. And he's just like, I don't give a fuck. Do whatever the hell you want. And then meanwhile, Black Adam's now settling down or kind of coming down to terms with his role in Kahndaq, and Adriana sort of agreeing to be sort of his moral compass, more or less, because she's the kid's mom and he kind of has this bond with the kid and he wants to be on good terms with the kid. So he ends up kind of just being sort of taken in by this mom and this son. And it kind of reminds him of the family that he lost when he first was the champion of Kahndaq. And then basically the movie ends with Black Adam looking over the city and sort of just admiring how much it's changed and just being at peace with himself being the protector of Kahndaq. It's nice night and there's lights and everything. And then he looks up at the night sky and he just sees a friggin' floating figure out in the air, like far off in the distance. And he gets kind of serious for a second. And then the figure sort of drifts and descends behind him. And then he goes, leave Kahndaq now if you value your life. And then the voice goes, I value all life. And Black Adam says, I have slain countless lives of man and gods to protect Kahndaq. I will slay lives to protect Kahndaq. And then friggin' Superman says, not if I have anything to say about that. Then they friggin' stare at each other and bam, credits roll. Holy shit, this movie was fucking insane. I was like, wow, they actually went there. They actually brought Henry Cavill back. He's back in full costume. He is Superman. And he goes straight up to Black Adam. He's like, bro, don't fuck with me. I will fuck you up. That was how this movie ended. This was so insane. I walked out of there and I was like, man, that was amazing. Unfortunately, everything I just said was not at all how this movie went. Okay, this was my version of Black Adam. This was what I could have spun this story and how I could have told this story using the same characters and elements that they actually used in this movie. It was similar to what you just heard in terms of characters and the way the story kind of rolls out. But overall, that story that I just told you is not how the actual movie went. In my opinion, that version is better than what we actually got. So what we actually got was a similar thing. Kahndaq is under oppression by, these crazy rulers. There's a intergang interfering and, causing a shitstorm. Somehow people seem to be fine, but for whatever reason, we're supposed to believe that intergang is bad. Adriana Tomaz, she's looking for ancient historic stuff. She, for whatever reason, is looking for the crown. They don't really explain why she's looking for the crown other than the fact that it is a material from history that has been outlawed, or basically is like a material that can grant them whatever the hell they want, and it's called Eternium or some shit. And she's looking for a crown that's made of Eternium, which ends up being the crown of Sabak. Of course, I don't know if she knows that. They don't explain much beyond the fact that she's looking for this crown. I guess they just needed a way for her to lead us to the tomb of Black Adam. So when she gets to the tomb, she's double crossed by one of her buddies who's basically trying to obtain the crown for his own greed and his own purposes. And so she's betrayed, and in a moment where she's about to die, she basically tries to summon or release Black Adam. So they don't explain much about any of how she knows any of this, or how she's able to decipher this ancient text in ancient runes, and why she's the only one that can. Anyways, she releases Black Adam, like you see in that first trailer. He fucking destroys everyone that's in his way. And then for whatever reason, he doesn't kill her. He flies off. The army shows up. I guess the army is part of Intergang, or whatever the case may be. And they're like, who the fuck are you? Stop, get out of the air. He has a whole scene where he just basically destroys everything in front of him. And the musical cues that they use for the movie are questionable, because you're led to believe, is this supposed to be comedic? Is it supposed to be serious? Is it supposed to be like a commentary on something? It kind of felt like they saw the scene from X-Men with Quicksilver running into the mansion to save everybody, and it was kind of like, this is really cool, but also very funny at the same time. And so that's what that scene was very much like, where he's destroying helicopters and jets, and he's wrecking soldiers, and he's catching rockets, and he's doing all this cool stuff, and he's just floating by people and electrocuting them with lightning. And they've got this kind of weird music playing, and you don't know if it's supposed to be serious, or if it's supposed to be epic, if it's supposed to be humorous. It's just a weird take, or a weird way to execute that scene. And then after he's basically done destroying, he's attacked by, I forget if it was a rocket actually, sorry. He's attacked by a rocket that contains Eternium. And for whatever reason, Eternium can affect him. It actually can wound him. And so he gets knocked out by this Eternium substance. And Adriana Tomaz is like, oh, great, let me take this friggin' god that I just released from 1,000-year-old prison and bring him to my house. So she takes him to her house, and he's basically sleeping in her son's room, on her son's bed, and she patched him up and everything. And the son, and keep in mind, this is in like Kandak, which is supposed to be like this country that's far away from the West. It's kind of like almost Iraq / maybe Afghanistan type place, but it is not at all a place that is influenced by the West. And for whatever reason, the son's room is like a typical teenager's room from like 1990. He's got posters of Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, which in my opinion, I think in a country that seems like they're that oppressed and is kind of like an allegory for like Iraq or something, he probably wouldn't have a poster of Wonder Woman, but hey, we're supposed to let that one slide. And so he's got action figures and probably comics and things like that. And Black Adam just sort of wakes up and zaps the poster of Superman. It's kind of like a little fun Easter egg where it's like foreshadowing at the potential fight between Superman and Black Adam. He zaps the Superman poster, and then the kid comes in and they start talking, and the kid's just rambling on about how he's a superhero and blah, 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 blah. And you're supposed to believe that this kid is not at all scripted, because why else would he be this infatuated with superheroes who have done nothing for his country, who have not intervened in any of the oppression and stopped any of the atrocities that they're facing? But now he's got Black Adam, and so he's infatuated with Black Adam, and he's going on about how you can save the day. And we were wondering, well, how does this kid know all this stuff? You could make the argument that it's because he is the son of this sort of professor / Lara Croft type character, and so maybe he's picked up influences from her. But the movie doesn't do much to help you connect those dots. And I know a lot of people are going to say, well, if you can see it and it's obvious enough, you don't need them to be more connected. But it just interferes with the believability of the story just a little bit when you don't tie certain things together or you don't answer certain questions. That's pretty much how I feel about any movie that leaves those things on the floor. Like, if I have to ask a question that seems like it was an obvious thing for you to cover, that means you didn't fully flesh out this idea. But anyways, Black Adam gets up and he's like a fish out of water, right? He doesn't know what's going on. He can see that the world is definitely different. He sees TV and they have a scene from The Good, the Bad, the Ugly with Clint Eastwood, and it's the standoff scene at the end. And at the same moment that they draw their guns in the movie, he zaps the TV, and so it's sort of like a little homage to like a Western style standoff. And for whatever reason, he doesn't use doors, and they kind of reference this in the movie itself because he just flies through walls because he'd rather fly through a wall. And so at one point, some characters like, they didn't have doors in your time, I guess. And he's like, no, we had doors. That's how we got through things. But here he just continues to fly through fucking walls. And that's part of what I think is an issue for me with the movie. Aside from like the story being completely all over the place. It's like they don't know where they want this movie to fall. Like, do you want this movie to fall in the category of being serious? Do you want it to fall in the category of being an action comedy, like kind of like Shazam? Do you want it to fall in the totally comedy or totally serious? Is Black Adam a hero? Is he a villain? Like, it's just all over the place. And I feel like part of that has to do with what I was talking about earlier with The Rock playing Black Adam and his persona as The Rock, as Dwayne Johnson, has always been this positive character in all of the movies that he's played. And I think Black Adam is just one of those characters where you either have to make up your mind. Is he an anti-hero? Is he a villain? You kind of have to decide that before you really write for that character. And then when you slap The Rock into that role, the thing that happens is you won't get that full villainous performance from The Rock. Because I feel like on some level that might affect or play a part against his brand as The Rock. So a friend of mine even says, this is basically The Rock in a superhero movie. He's the same character he's always played, just in a superhero movie. And that's where I kind of lose a little bit of the connection to it, is because you don't really get the sense of where this movie is supposed to, like what type of movie this is and what the audience is for this movie. Let alone it's a movie for superhero fans and for people who are fans of The Rock. But is this movie serious? Not really, because there's all these weird sort of supposed to be comical scenes. But then is it a comedy? Not really, because then there are some themes and some moments where it's like, holy crap, there's like serious shit happening here. Like for instance, he's always said that they're going to push the limits of PG-13. And so they do in the terms of violence. Like, he does some brutal shit to some people in this movie. But again, none of it really feels like it has any substance, because most of the guys that he's like destroying are basically faceless soldiers. And, he fights Dr. Fate and he fights Hawkman, but he's not nearly as brutal to them as he is to these like defenseless soldiers. I'm calling them defenseless because they don't have powers. But they are able to somehow hurt him with Eternium, and none of them kind of figured out, oh shit, we hurt him with Eternium that one time. Let's make more Eternium bullets. But it's, like I said, it's a substance that's sort of like, it's here for a minute. It's important to the plot somehow, but then later on, it's never really brought up ever again. And he ends up befriending this kid because for whatever reason, he has a connection to this kid. And so you don't, like, that's the thing. Like, as soon as he comes out of being trapped in the tomb, you would think that he's just on this vengeful path to like right every wrong in the world, or every wrong in Kahndaq at least. But no, he's just kind of floating around, and then the kid is really kind of guiding him to the idea of taking on Intergang. And I didn't even get to the stuff with Hawkman and the Justice Society, which really isn't the Justice Society. So what ends up with them and how they get introduced into the movie is Black Adam is released from his tomb, and Amanda Waller, for whatever reason, calls up Carter Hall, and she's like, hey, assemble the team and go stop this dude. And then he's just like, all right, I'm already on it. I've got the people ready. I've got my buddy Dr. Fate coming over. I've got Cyclone, this new kid, never tried or tested, but we're going to throw her into the ring of battle right at her very first mission. And then we got another kid. It's sort of like his first day on the job, which is Atom Smasher. And he's picking up the mantle from his uncle, who was the former Atom Smasher. And so you got two newbies. You got Dr. Fate, who's been around the block a few times. And then you've got Carter Hall, who they don't explain much about his history. But, oh man, if they did, they would have been able to tie him and Black Adam together a lot better, because they both have this connection to the past. And then you have Dr. Fate, who has the ability to have these visions of both the future, past, and present. And so he could have played another factor into how they eventually come to needing him for this mission. But like I said, they went with this weird way of having Amanda Waller assemble the team, which is kind of weird because she's more on the sidelines when it comes to like these very public things, where she would send the Suicide Squad, for instance, on a covert mission or on something to do that's less grand scale than this. Not so much in the first movie, but definitely in the second movie for Suicide Squad, you get that sense a little bit better. But here she's just straight up calling Carter Hall, who we don't have any real connection to because we've never seen him before. And she basically says, go off and stop Black Adam. And he assembles this ragtag team. They don't know shit about this fucking guy. And they're like, yeah, we're just going to go and see what's up. And then when they get there, he's destroying shit. He's killing civilians. Well, not civilians. He's killing soldiers, and he's killing all these people, and he's doing it, all brutally and stuff. And they're like, you can't do that. So, of course, he ends up fighting with them. Just like I kind of outlined in my version of the movie. And then he kind of wipes the floor with them. And then this is kind of where the movie teeters a little bit, because it goes from being where you think it's going to go in terms of he beats them, and then, later on discovers or learns that, he has to work with them. But it goes back and forth. And the thing that I think takes me out of it is every time Hawkman interacts with him, it's always like this angry sort of like look down on you type of personality, even though Black Adam can squash him, like literally squash him. And you have these side characters taking up more screen time in the movie, where you could flesh out the interaction between these characters a bit more. But they decided to go this, like I said, they decided to go this route where you don't know if it's a, like an action comedy or if it's supposed to be serious. But anyways, they end up teaming up at the end to fight fucking Sabak. And I skipped over one of the key factors, but maybe I'll just jump into this because maybe it's better for you guys to see the movie and kind of understand where I'm coming from. The parts that I liked about Black Adam are really what you get in the trailer, which is saying the most that I can about this movie. So, for instance, The Rock as Black Adam, I think he looks fantastic. I would have preferred that they gave him the hair like he's supposed to have, but maybe The Rock didn't want to, he didn't want to rock a wig maybe, so they didn't give him the hair. But I think he looks great. I think the suit looks fine. The visuals are fantastic. They look great, but they don't sound great. And that could be the theater that I was in. Maybe the speakers in the theater weren't that good, but it was an empty theater, so it wasn't much noise from the audience to interfere with the noise from my end. But the sound from the movie, and I'm talking about scenes where like there's an explosion, or he's crashing through a wall, or he's punching through a rock, or something like that, where you think it's going to be a nice sort of loud noise. It's not. It sounds very muffled. I'm not sure if that, again, it could have been the theater, or it could just be the sound design and sound editing for this movie. The other thing is the violence that they decide to portray. So he did mention in promotion for this movie that they're going to push that PG-13 limit. I think they kind of do that to some degree because you get a lot of Black Adam smashing guys on the floor. You got him completely wrecking tanks and helicopters, and there's people in them, and he completely zaps one dude completely to death. Like, he just holds this dude by the neck and just electrifies him until he's nothing but bone. And like, there's cool shit like that, but it visually looks great, but it doesn't sound like it should. It should sound a little bit better, a little bit more emphasis. Like, it should be like way more like heart pounding. It should be like, when you hear it, it should like freak the shit out of you. But for whatever reason, the sound in this movie is not that great. As far as dislikes go, I think the story is really weak. I think the story is where they drop the ball the most. Where did they drop the ball? I think, like I mentioned, I think the film's a little wishy-washy, where they don't know if they want to portray him as a true villain, or show how he went from hero to villain. They don't really cross the line to say that he's a hero, although at the end of the movie you're supposed to get the sense that he's the hero, I guess. You could argue maybe they're trying to blend that line of him being an anti-hero, but again, they don't take a stance, like a definitive stance. He's 1 minute really, really bad. He's 1 minute really, really good. He's 1 minute in the gray, and you're not sure. But at the end of it, I think you're supposed to say, or you're supposed to think like, okay, I guess he is the hero because he's protecting Kahndaq. It has its funny moments. Some of them were like a little chuckle funny, but nothing like, not MCU style humor here at all. And then the other issue I had, or the other dislike that I had for this movie is they kind of change his origin story a little bit. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say that my favorite origin for him is the New 52 version of his origin, where he takes the power from his nephew and kills his nephew to become Black Adam, and then basically says to Billy Batson, Shazam, he says to Billy, that's the difference between us. I'm willing to kill my own blood to see my vision, to enact my version of like power, and Billy's not willing to cross that line. So that version of him is my favorite because it really portrays him as this like really dark, really evil guy, but he has good intentions, just fucking crazy and like murderous. This version, they don't go that route at all. They basically make him the Gladiator version, which is like he loses his son, he loses his wife, and through that tragedy he becomes sort of tainted by the acts of man and all that shit, and he basically becomes Black Adam. But the true savior, the true leader of the people when they were being oppressed thousands of years ago was his son, because he was the symbol of rebellion. He was a symbol of freedom. But it's not executed well. The way that they changed it so that he's a father, not an uncle, it's not a big deal. But the way that they made it so that he's not really the bad guy for killing his son or his nephew, and instead made him, a victim of these people trying to stop his son and him from leading a revolution. It kind of flips that characteristics of Black Adam and not make it as solid or as weighted as it was in the comics. So it's a slight thing. It's not going to break the story for any non-fans or anything like that. Even some actual fans or comic book fans are going to see that and be like, yeah, I understand why they made that change. For me, that was something I didn't like. And then they slightly changed his powers. And this is where I'm going to rely on some of the diehard fans to kind of chime in here. I'm not too keen on this particular part. The Black Adam that I know, he doesn't say the word Shazam to release his power, because if he does, it basically means he'll die, because he's thousands of years old. And so he never wants to relinquish the power of Shazam, not for sake of just relinquishing it to die, but because he's not done with his mission, or he's not done enacting or rolling out his version of justice or his version of power and authority. So that thing, I think they changed a little bit. Anyone else who knows the true nature of his powers and if he's able to say Shazam back and forth and go between being normal and being Black Adam, if that's possible or not, please let me know. But for me, they kind of flip-flop with that in this movie, and they kind of changed his ability to do that. And it definitely made me have a what the fuck moment. So overall, those are some of the things I liked, some of the things I disliked. If I were giving this movie a rating out of 10, I'd say this movie is probably a 5 for me. I feel like if this movie came out like maybe 10 years ago, just when the whole like superhero rage started happening, I think it would have been right at home 10 years ago, because it would have been kind of nice, basic origin story, not so much heavy on the, the comic influence, but more just here's a Black Adam movie. Here's how we get Black Adam onto screen and how we get him into future movies. Here it is. I think it would have been perfect around that time, but in today's superhero movie time, it just doesn't feel like it lives up to anything that they're putting out. The writing for me seems kind of weak. A lot of people are going to see this and they're probably going to love it because it's just exactly what they're looking for, just a basic sort of no brain plugged in kind of thing, and you kind of just watch and enjoy, flashy, nice effects and things like that. But as a fan of the source material and as a fan of this character and having hopes for what they could have done with this character in the future, I really feel like this wasn't the one. And then when you add on to the fact that they've been working on this movie, or it's been in production for so long, it makes you really feel like this wasn't the best that they could do. I'm not knocking it as far as them putting it out. I think that them getting it out is actually really good, because now it means that we can get to next things with Black Adam. And so that's where I lead into that cameo scene that I was talking about earlier, which is fucking Superman. They actually bring Superman into the movie. Henry Cavill shows up. And of course, this all got leaked months ago when there was speculation that he'd be showing up in the movie, because there were rumors of reshoots and things like that. And so it was rumored that this particular scene was shot very close to the release of this movie. So I think they had finished principal photography around maybe April, and this movie or that scene was shot maybe May, maybe June, which is really, really late. But what ends up happening is Superman does show up at the end of the movie. It's a mid-credit scene, and he basically says, "It's been a while since the world has been on edge like this," referring to him when he first appeared on Earth, or revealed himself to Earth, and they were all like, what the hell's going on? There's aliens, blah, blah, blah. So he's like, it's been a while since the world has felt like this. We should talk, basically. Black Adam's like, all right, talk. And it basically ends like that. And you're just left with, the whole movie was meant to build up to that point. I think the whole movie, the whole purpose of it, I think for what it means going forward, was just to get Black Adam and Superman in the same frame together. And it's for me, if that was the whole point of the movie, fine, I'll take it, I'll accept it. It's a 5 out of 10 for me. But this is where I'm more interested now in what happens going forward. Like, are we gonna have Black Adam and Superman going at it? Because we need to see that. Anyone who knows the comics and the animated stuff, there is a really well animated Black Adam Shazam Superman movie. It's about it's a short animated movie, about 45 minutes. I was hoping that that's what we were going to get, but that's all possible future stuff. But that's it for me. I hope I didn't bore you too much. If you have any comments or you want to share your thoughts, please reach out. I am on Instagram at NerdGab and on Twitter at nerd_gab. You can also email me at nerdgab.podcast@gmail.com. If you've made it to this far in the video, you might as well just drop a follow on one of those social medias, because why did you make it this far without following me? So hope to hear from you soon. Please share your thoughts. I'd love to know what you think. I love to talk about this kind of stuff. And until next time, guys, NerdGab out.